dad committed suicide and his mother committed suicide. So I'm the first one, I feel like, in a line to kind of break this cycle. So I feel like it's very related in my experience, this lineage thing of like this suicide.
Yeah.
So I just think it's very, very deep.
It's very deep. It's very intense.
Or something.
Yeah, it's in the it's in the field. This is where there's been dysregulation and there's been freeze in your body. You know, there's vigilance in your body, and this goes all the way back to. I mean, we're talking. You're adopted. There was suicides. You know, these are intense experiences of being like here in this body. It's so common for an achiever to want to, who's really achieving, and you are resourcing your fields, you're operating at a high level, like that's where you got to go slow to go fast. You have to slow everything down and let it emerge. And the emergence is just new territory. The intensity that your being went through as a child and through these intense experiences, that striving to survive creates that right. Vigilance and holding, but you can't like shake your way because the tendency for anyone who's had significant trauma that wants to like make it better is to like go, tell me what to do. What do I do? I'm just going to work on that. And like, this is a paradox. You have to stop all attempt to change the situation and just let the emergence happen. I'm gonna have you go back face down. And so also this is the AP5 pattern. We were working through AP1, but what is that pattern about? Control, overriding the experience of being out of control by trying to hold it all together and think, you know. And we're working through AP1, and remember AP1, there's more availability at AP1. AP1 has to do with the past and how we remember and how we orient toward the past. What are we talking about? The past, day one, when she was born, she was adopted a day later, right? So so this ties into the past. We're right at the S2, right in the upper sacrum. What does this region often relate to here? It can relate to the relationship to the feminine. So, you know, how we remember and how we orient toward the feminine. It could be mother, it could be grandmother, it could be just the feminine energy in general. All of this makes sense with what is going on. So I'm going to go into infinite field, life force. Okay, I'm going to go around to the other to make the other contact. Root. So there's so much resource in her fields. Like her fields are very responsive and very expressive, even though her ability to feel and experience through and within the body has been more limited. Here we go. Here we can see response. Here in the field of her heart, right behind her heart. There we go. So she's still has passive tension in the system here, but the passive tension is really more limited now to two main areas. It's here, upper lumbar spine, lower thoracic, and upper thoracic right in through here. So now we're moving more into the AP5 pattern that's now presenting at C2, 3, and C3, 4. So now we're bringing that infinite to the ability to feel and express and experience through life force, but also we're recognizing that it's still the AP5 pattern. I would expect we're moving from overriding with thought to beginning to feel. So we're like thawing out, right? We're starting to move from being frozen into the thought, and then the thought allows feeling to start to happen, and then the feeling then can move into expression. But we're still not in the emotional field, we're in the life force. Again, she's very responsive for somebody who has had the kind of history she's had, and knowing that she's had the lack of experience through her body, she's quite responsive. But I want to check in, just subjectively, what is, what you're noticing. What are you aware of, or what are you noticing?
I'm just like noticing a lot of buzzing.
Yeah. Okay. She's noticing a lot of buzzing happening. Where am I exiting? Life force. What is the quality or feeling or experience? oftentimes buzzing, vibration. It's not an emotion. It's just the feeling of that life force field being activated is going to oftentimes feel like you're plugged into back into the circuit board, back into the wall. It's like you're plugging back into life force, which was more elusive. So that's going to start. Now that's emergent. And so that's starting to build. So I'm going to use that emergence. Like you see, now she's starting to organize. Now the passive tension is dropping. Passive tension is dropping. There's still some passive, but the passive is now right on the edge of 3. But this is such a good response that's happening, and she has the awareness, and I want to actually really work with this life force. So I'm going to do one more contact at direct in AP5, life force, infinite to life force. There's a little bit more tone coming into her respiration. You can hear her sighing a little bit more. There's a little more expression coming in. We're starting to transfer more from just pure life force into a bit more into the activation of the active system. And the motion is starting to increase as well. But she's, again, transitioning between, in a way, engaging life force, moving into the active and starting to engage the muscle tendon complex, which is going to bring her into more feeling. And I recheck the parameters down here. I'm just going to help the sacrum float a little bit more, help that forces that are already moving in the system integrate a little bit more through. And there's heat coming off of her middle throat behind her heart. This is a lot of thermal energy starting to build because now the muscles and tendons are starting to move. The system's starting to express and move energy. The life force is more engaged, and there's starting to be heat actually being generated. Now I'm going to go to the depth of the emotional field. I'm switching now. Why? Because passive now dropped down. It's now below a 3 out of 5, and now the system's starting to activate here. And now I'm going to go into that emotional depth, infinite to emotional. So there's a vibration happening. There's more oscillation starting to happen at that C2, C3, C3, C4. Now there we go. That figure 8 starting to happen right there. So she's starting to engage, and she's starting to develop a more coherent oscillation. The system's moving in the direction of, look, she's starting to engage here. Now this musculature is starting to engage right in here, right behind where her adrenals are. Active system starting to engage. With a beautiful integration that's happening. If I palpate, life force is much more available. We have very low passive. It went from very high passive to very low passive, and now emotional system is engaged. She's got the figure 8 starting to happen. I'm going to have her turned over onto her back. So now we're just going to allow this, and just any shaking vibration, any of that expansion and the energy moving in the body, just allowing it. It's allowing it. Nothing needs to be helped along. It's just an expression that will come out in its own pace, its own timing. Infinite to emotional. So I'm going to go underneath here. Access points. There we go. Helping that sympathetic system start to, engage. Here she's mobilizing energy, so it's helping that movement come up more into your chest and heart. Letting the jaw, letting the throat soften. Sometimes the teeth will almost chatter a bit, right? The system's moving. There we go. I'm going to work with these oscillators. You can see this vibration that's happening, this emergence that's happening. Life force is getting highly fueled. Emotional system starting to come online. More safety, creating the foundation for expansion. Or reorganization starting to happen here. creating those oscillators, and then heart. On the exhale, let it go out through your mouth, and then let yourself, whether it's a sigh, a moan, letting some tone or sound, if it not forced, not something you're doing, but letting that expression, because that allows for the more of the discharge. Remember, emotional field, sound, tone, vibration, expression, free. And it's all this area where there was high passive tension, and this area too. We're starting to get more of the motion coming in. How much jaw and mouth, teeth, throat, this is all, again, discharging energy that's been held for really from day one, really pre-day one. Again, infinite, emotional. Let's see here. There. Now a little more beautiful. Again, AP5 was keeping it all together, keeping everything contained that was beyond control. Now we're allowing for the rhythm and the expression to grow. Okay, I'm going to find those exact points. There we go, right there. Okay. A little more right in the stroking the clavicle like this. It helps to create this expansion in and through the heart. Right there at the very end of that range, when the contraction starts to happen slightly, I want you to let yourself make a sound for 2 to 3 seconds. Right there. Yes, right there. That tone is now burrowing. It's like sending it deeper into the interior, which is the rhythm's already there. There, sound all the way from the core. Yeah. It's not forced. It's when the rhythm the wave is hitting right there, and then you're making the sound. And then what's happening is yes. She's deep. She's diving deeper. She's been diving deep as a diver in the ocean to get to these depths, but now she's diving deeper into the interior of her own depths. And there's no effort. It's just going with what's already happening. Beautiful. So this whole front of the body, throat, jaw, heart, solar plexus, all the way down to the pelvis, we're opening up. Sound right at that last. When you coach her for sound at the last part of that, right there. That's it. It's right on that edge of what's, because there's a pre-verbal element of this. It's a pre-rational element which was connected to that life force and that, early life where she was adopted at a day old, 1 day old. So it's like a combo of the emotional system looking to discharge energy, the life force and that organizing force in that field to find expression and tone, moving the visceral oscillation into expression and tone through the emotional system. There's this whole process that's going on. So in this case, coaching for the movement that's already happening. I'm not asking her to generate anything. I'm just asking her to allow the expression of what's already happening to move through as tone, because that's going to allow for discharge and it's going to allow for integration. Again, she's diving deep into the interior, which was what it was elusive. Now notice right when she, about halfway through the exhale, her arms go kind of stiff and they're levering, naturally kind of levering into this area, right into the solar plexus area. That's where I want her to make the sound. So when your body's exhaling, you get to right there, now sound. Like a from the core, right from the deeper, lowers. Sound. Now she's going naturally to more of a mouth breathing, which is more of the merging starting to happen. She's starting to merge and integrate this now. Which, again, we know that mouth breath, either whether it's natural or induced, starts to take you into more of a kind of a lightheaded, more altered state. It's a rebirthing breath that she's naturally just organically expressing. And she could see in her fingers, there might be some even tetany starting a little bit, where the hands start to kind of tighten, or you feel tingling and vibration and numbness through. And we want to let that happen and let the body express and move and unravel and tone and sound. One of the things I'm observing is that she's this kind of stiffness that's in the arms is that there's some element that's getting somewhat skipped, where when she hits that, the body is right. So right before, she's with me, I can coach her here. Right before your arms kind of jolt up, start making the sound. There. There. Sound. Now move it from your throat all the way down through to your core. So the sound right now is a little bit superficial to the there. So now she connected it more. She's linking it there. It's deeper. It's more intense. So it's something that was like that her system had been evading in a way, because there's a lot of charge. There's a lot of energy there. It's like the intensity of where it's deep and there's a lot of power and energy there, which is why the body would jerk and skip, right? So we want to make sure that sometimes we can use sound to match the intensity. So it's like holding a tuning fork up to that, so your higher brain cortical centers can find the intensity of that frequency and help to integrate it. And part of that is also some skipping of the heart oscillator, which is okay because she's working with it. She's here present with me. She's not dissociating. She's not able to follow the instruction. There, she just did this, which was a reconnection to that figure eight, which is starting to allow like her system to be more organic. And yeah, there we go. Now, I want you to take that figure eight kind of motion, and now I want you to just do this And I want you to just let your arms start to go in like a kid having a tantrum. Or, yeah, and just let your body rock and sway and move and keep breathing in through your mouth, out through your mouth. And imagine if you just went, it's really about going wild. Like if a river or a stream or rapids or a wave was just tumbling you and you just let yourself flail. And let yourself breathe in through the mouth, out through the mouth as you flail and move. Good. And you can see how much tetany is kind of happening because there's so much energy moving in the system and it's taking new pathways. And I want to let her, in a way, give her permission to just freak out in a way. It's like, let your body just go wild. If a little kid fell on the ground having a tantrum and just let it express, like how might the body move, kicking and moving and flailing around. Sometimes that permission is helpful to let the habituated pattern of containment reorganize and redistribute. Now, if someone is in a pattern like this and they're naturally, organically doing this mouth breathing and they're going into this kind of like emotion, I want to just make sure that I see that it's moving from just these more kind of fragmented qualitative movements toward more integration, and that ultimately there's a softening and there's a return to a nose mouth breathing, and there's grounding and there's slowing down. If the person keeps going mouth, they keep going into this kind of more fragmented, disjointed state, they may need support in grounding and coming back into regulation. So then I would guide her to slow down the breathing, breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, come back into the space, present time to your body, right? So I can guide and coach her if need be, but this is happening of its own accord, and she's not needing that coaching right now. The only coaching I really had to give her was sound to help her oscillate the tissues deeper into the interior. Again, the way her fingers are and her hands are right now, almost mudra-like, is more of a kind of, oftentimes, a response you get to that vigorous mouth breathing, whether it's generated by a breathwork process or it emerges as an integration process. So this is an integrating in this case. And oftentimes, if the mouth breathing is going like this, you just have the person make a tone, sound, vibration, and that activates more of the emotional. The mental fields get more activated with this mouth breathing, and this it starts to merge with the lower mind, and if you want to bring someone back more into the emotional and into the life force, you can again have them slow the breathing down or have them move to nose mouth breathing. Or have them make sound or tone. That will also help to bring them more into the emotional. If they can match the tone or frequency, it'll bring them back into more of the emotional field. And she's continuing to go, and she's a free diver athlete that wants to just dive deep and wants to be in this experience. So in a way, there's a kind of a component of it's organic, it's natural, it's happening, and she's participating too, because she's an explorer here and wants this to go deeper. But we want to make sure that we're supporting as the rhythm of this comes to its like a completion of a resolution, that we're also guiding so it doesn't become more driven by a desire and become more of a mental process. So that's also something to pay attention to. Sometimes people will be very entertained by their process. This isn't what's happening here. But sometimes people, they want that altered state experience, and that experience of energy moving becomes what they're going after rather than the integration, which is she really wants the integration. So this is all very organic, natural, moving in the right direction. and I'm going to come back and just check to make sure. There's chemical tone in her system now coming up. So when I go to the cervical spine, she's got a lot of spongy, rubbery quality. So that means her system in this process is discharging. It could be related to some past anesthesia, some metabolites in her system, maybe all the deep diving that she's doing and the way she's containing and holding her breath, the metabolites that build up there, lactic acid, etc. But she's having a chemical release as well. And that often can lead someone to feel kind of nauseous or that they're definitely experiencing and feeling some kind of detox-like quality. Sometimes people get a metallic taste in their mouth, and things like that will happen when you start moving energy and discharging a lot of kind of held energy in these regions that have been bound with scar tissue or around a surgical site or what was held in the body from some kind of trauma, and then it starts moving in the system and into the bloodstream, and you get this kind of chemical release that's happening. So I would coach or guide someone to make sure you let them know what's happening, what's likely happening, make sure you're drinking water, make sure you give yourself plenty of rest and let this like move through. If a bunch of chemical toxicity discharging into the system, we want to make sure that you're like helping the person and supporting them in any kind of things that would help detox. So usually just fluids and rest are so I'm gonna talk to her. We haven't conversed for a bit, so I'm gonna check in with you, Lauren, and just get a sense of how you're doing over here. What are you noticing?
I just like the intense tetany
Yeah.
that keeps like
Yeah.
fluctuating.
Yeah.
I know what that is
Yeah.
from doing breath work, but
Yeah.
it's like I'm familiar with this state.
Yeah.
So I'm fine with this. It's just happening.
Yes.
Like I was feeling a little nauseous.
Yes.
It was like similar to what happens when I'm surfacing and scuba diving.
Mm-hmm.
Like the
yeah.
when you get a little bit of like nauseousness from resurfacing too fast.
Yes. Yes.
That's like the same tone I'm feeling.
Yes.
It's like a little bit of dizziness.
Yes.
It's I forget the word for it.
Yeah.
It's
okay right now. You don't have to recall it.
But it's that.
Yeah. Okay. So that little bit of dizziness and nausea, make the sound or the expression of a tone of that nauseous quality, that whatever it is. So we want to decrease the pressure, right? We want to give an outlet for this kind of pressurized quality that has got to be contained somehow in some. So again, this is what's one of the things that's happening in this process right now is that she's now moving more into the lower mind and integrating. So she went life force, emergent, into the emotional. Lower mind started to get activated through this process, moving into this mouth breathing and starting to destabilize this kind of infrastructure or architecture that's been set up for many, 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 many years from the very beginning. And now we're starting to move into more of where that lower mind field can actually inhibit like a conditioning or a rule structure or some kind of focus that keeps the free expression from being able to happen. Like you're contained by the grid of the lower mind rather than uplifted by and allowed for possibilities through the lower mind. We're disrupting that containment. And that's part of where the body's wanting to emerge and move in these spontaneous ways. It's also tied into the override that was happening, that was tied into the AP5 pattern of the chaos, like what I can't control. It's got to keep it contained. And so when the expression starts to happen, it can feel chaotic and out of control, but also liberating. But the mind starts coming in because that's what the pattern is tied into. It's a mental pattern, an override of expression and freedom and liberation with control. So all of this is very consistent with the pattern that we're addressing. But the fields that we're now working, and what we've, we went into this with this focus and attention on the quality and the consciousness related to the fields. We went infinite to life force, we went infinite to emotional, and now we're starting to organically, she's moving into more of the mental field. And in a positive way, because she's that kind of unraveling that's happens as that mental field's getting more fueled, and it has less control needed and more possibility is starting to emerge. Possibility for how the body can move, possibility for what thoughts can be thought, possibility for what feelings can be felt and expressed, possibility for what meanings can be created, possibility for what identity can be tried on or put on, and possibility for new possibilities to arise and to become, rather than, she said multiple times in the beginning that, it's my identity. My identity is just like, this is what I've known forever. And it's like, is that who you are? No, you're so much more, right? So we're suspending all of the architecture and the patterning that kept her contained in an illusion of this is who I am. And opening to who we truly are beyond our conditioning and beyond our wounding and beyond our trauma, into including it, but who we are in our soul and who we are in our infinite nature of being beyond this life, beyond this moment, beyond.
Where should I put my arms?
Okay.
I feel like I'm so vibrating,
Yes.
but like hot. Like it's like
Yes.
shivering, but
Yes.
hot.
Yes. Yes. You don't have to put anything anywhere. Your body will just take you where it needs to take you here. So your arms might be up, they might be down, they might be moving. Sometimes when someone asks like that, it might be a specific place. It might be more helpful to place their arms somewhere very specific. In this case, I want her to in a way stay in not in a position. It's like we're disrupting the positionality. We're disrupting that this is how I hold myself. So it's normal and necessary for her to be asking the question, where should I put my arms? How do I do this body? Because I've been used to doing it in a certain way for so long, and now it's spontaneous and it's looking for new patterns and new pathways are being developed, and like a neuroplastic remodeling is happening here. And so it's going to be oftentimes for the person who's in a process like this, uncomfortable, but also in this case, she's curious. And that's a sign that she's integrating at a high level, is that there's a curiosity of like, what should I do with my arms? There's not fear there. It's like, this is weird. This is cool. This is what I asked for, but I didn't know what it was going to be like. And now what do I do? So that is all because the lower mind also is now in a whole, it's being activated in a positive way. This isn't relational field. It's not heart. This isn't, we're not working in the soul field, although there's an element of there that's present there, but it's more infinite into now the three, which was life force, emotional, and lower mind. Those are the three fields that are actually primarily getting integrated with infinite. All the infinite possibilities for how this whole architecture of physiology and structure, emotion and expression, and mind at the level of the lower mind, which is, this is how we do this. We don't do it this way, we do it that way. And all that's not identity level, but it's kind of operational level, and she's completely reorganizing now. And she's still in process with it. And this process might go on, and I'm just going to be with her and just watch and make sure that the integration is happening, that if I see a repetitive movements without discharge or dissipation, I guide or coach her so that there's some kind of expression and it's leading toward more ease, coherence, and groundedness and presence. But again, we have a high performance athlete here who can hold her breath and dive deep, 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 deep down. So it's like she can go on and on here. So sometimes, right, this is the individual. Some people might, this whole process might be 5 or 7 minutes. Like she could be on this table for 30 or 40 minutes, maybe just in this. But I want to be with her. And if I'm working multiple tables, if I'm working with another person, I might go over to that person, but I want to check in to make sure that she is integrating and that we're not going sideways and she's starting to have some dissociation or disconnection going on. Again, with the AP5 pattern and the certainty that is needed with challenges she's had, like with life force from early in life, when you need certainty, you typically you stiffen up because you're trying to hold everything together. So now we're changing also that pattern, right? We're changing a tendency to hold everything together, and we're inviting where the energy was bound, in this case in her hand, to move and redistribute, which is the opposite of what the natural tendency would be. And so we saw that a lot more activity started to happen with just having a redirect focus from this, all this pressure and tension that was building up in her hand, and giving her the possibility, hey, it doesn't have to just stay there. You can allow it to spread and expand. And now it will, again, it's life force, which we're heavily activating in this session. So life force will fuel the system in whatever way is most naturally emergent and innate, and there's an innate wisdom. It's a pre-conscious part of you that is below the awareness of even your emotional system. So it just will, once it's moving, and that's what's happening, it will move. I just reminded her or told her that it could be allowed to redirect other than just stay held in a region. What do you notice? Do you notice?
It like moved around.
Yeah.
But it's coming back. It's almost like my hand is plugged into an energy source.
Yes.
And it like keeps buzzing.
Okay, now if there's
Like,
anywhere,
which is-
now here's sometimes what you could do. If there's anywhere that you through your body that you have a sense that could use connection or energy, you can place your hand on that part. It doesn't have, if you don't, then don't do it. But sometimes we can you can place your hand on some part of the body and you can let that energy now flow into that region. If there's super abundance of life force, we went from very little access to that life force field through the body to now a super abundance of life force energy, an excess of it. And now we can let that redistribute and direct in a way. She's not having to do anything. It's just let it flow into that part. And let that part receive. So there's nothing for me right now to do to put more force into the system. She's got so much already moving around. I'm giving her some options of how she might focus that would help expression happen, help it be organic, help it be natural, but not directed in a way where she has to do something, because what's happening is very innate and it's very effortless. It's more about what are the possibilities for how energy can move in different ways that are just not rehearsed or practiced. It's like you have a track that you've laid down, and now we're saying, here, you can go in this path, and this path, and this path. Let's explore and just allow the energy to move into a different sort of pathway. But if something has been over and over and over the pattern, you stay within a certain range, then all the fascia, all the connective tissues are restricted, and they're having to remodel and reorganize, and the whole neurology is like, wait, we don't just freely do this. We stay in this zone, and that's part of what's also getting interrupted right now. If a kind of a shimmy or a shake can happen, that is right where her arms want to do this kind of jerkiness, but if it could just kind of shimmy through, we might get yeah. There we go. We're giving her permission for other ways. There's some observation and there's some research that has been done on people and how they move, and when somebody is like a young child. If you put them in a room and you say, hey, you have permission to move in whatever, or you watch the way they move, there'll be like a few thousand different unique kind of movement patterns that they'll do over a period of time. And if you take an adult and you say, go crazy, go wild, then put them in a room and let them just say, go crazy, get chaotic, there's something like 30 something different unique movement patterns that they'll do. So you get conditioned to be less and less expressive of different variations and patterns in the way we move over time, out of just, this is the way you're supposed to behave. This is how you need to be. You're not supposed to be able to move that way. With her, part of it's the mental, but a lot of it was at the life force. So there was actual resistance or restriction to moving the range of her fascia and connective tissues from like day one. So I'm giving her some, in a way, new possibilities and new options, and pointing things out that she can shimmy, she can shake, she can move in circular motions, she can move in rhythmical motions. The energy can move in different ways that are just not practiced. But I'm doing that because it's already moving in the system, and she's just in this process that's continuous and it's still going on. I would not, if she was just laying on the table and this wasn't happening, just tell her to move, because that would be too mental. And then we're just going to let this continue to integrate, and then we will see where we leave off here. And again, she's being a high level athlete here. She's in a exploration here, that she has a lot of stamina, so she can go for a long time. And sometimes that we also need to keep that into consideration if you're working with people, that when a session is done because of a time limit that you have, that okay, we've completed this amount of time, that person may actually need additional time to integrate. So it might be that you have, if you're working multiple tables, you have an extra table that you can have someone rest on while you're continuing, or you have a place in your office or wherever, your studio or wherever you're working, where that person doesn't have to just get kicked right out the door, because she's not, my timing might be, okay, this is what we were going to do in this period of time, and then her timing and the timing of the universe is very different. And so I want to allow for and support her in having that integration. So I want to keep that into consideration when I'm thinking about how I'm going to be working with people, especially if they spontaneously go into a process that we want to allow to happen. So in my practice, when I had my physical practice, I had my office. I had 6 tables, and I had 4 of those tables were in one room, and then I had 2 extra like side rooms with a table in them each. And so I would schedule like 5 people every X amount of, on my schedule at a time. But then I would always leave that extra spot because someone might need to stay longer and be on that table to integrate. So, most people that are just learning, you're going to be working one table. But let's say you have a schedule and you're going to see several people in a row. What if one person is in a process that they're not quite ready? It's not like a massage that you finish and then you're like, okay, we're done. It could be that a process is initiated and you need a little extra time to integrate. So just keep in mind that either scheduling longer space between people to give that extra time just in case, or just having a place for someone to rest or lay down in another room or somewhere where that process can continue. As long as you're not sending someone off to that space when they're still in process and you're not tracking what's going on. This is resolving and going to a lot of coherence and quiet and ease. So we don't have to be tracking that now because it's resolving. So this is about this point, I would ship her off to another location here to lay, to rest, and to integrate. Maybe give her a blanket, some water, and then check in with her as she's coming back into a more kind of awake and alert place. We'll come back around and have a chat in a bit. What I would like to hear from you is just what you feel like based on what you're sensing right now and what you're still exploring, because there's still a process going on. What is your sense of what you're taking away from this?
Well, I actually found it very interesting that because now that I know what's happening, that there was so much chemical tone coming out. So that is something I feel like it makes sense, and I would like to, now that I know that, it's like I need it. I must have something to get out there. Like that could be like blocking something.
I mean, is there something that you think of from your history that might be?
I did have a surgery when I was 10 days old, but other than that, or just the diving, like I'm a dive master as well. So there was a lot of scuba diving, a lot of like air stuff. So yeah, but not knowing that might be affecting me. So that is something that's, I didn't know. That's cool. And then just, knowing that I can, it's like the integration portion is the most important. Is what I'm learning. Like you can do the work and be in it, but it's really like your system's continuing to just play out. It's like that's the most important part.
What is the outcome of all of this movement? Or what is the outcome of these breathing patterns? What is the outcome of the body moving in these new ways? What is the outcome for your life? What is it doing for the way you live your life and how you are in the world? That's really what we are after. And so a state change and an experience is a wonderful thing, but like that's not going to change. It's not going to change your life. A state could lead to a change in someone's life, and usually altered states and going to a different state can be, someone can have a near-death experience, or someone could have a very powerful transformative experience and awakening, and their whole life could totally change. But more often than not, you have that state change and you go back to your life. So I love that you're taking that away, the integration of what is moving in your system and starting to open up and emerge and integrate is going to lead to a significant change. And
so I guess what do you think I should focus on after something like that?
So right now with what just happened, fluids, it's because you want to hydrate and you want to make sure that like you're urinating more, that you're moving just that chemical tone, the chemical release out of the system, rest, just pay attention to any needs or any kind of callings that your body has for attention, whether that's touch. I had you take your hands and they went right to this one part of your body. So maybe putting your hands, if your hands are called to like hold or touch, because again, sometimes as we're activating life force in this way and this deep level we're talking about early in your life, like early childhood, there could be a need to be held. I put a blanket on you at the end, afterwards that wasn't on film, but kind of cocoon you a bit. So sometimes it might be snuggling up and being in a cocoon, like having someone lay down in fetal position and just going under the covers. Sometimes what might feel good to someone after something like this is just to go outside and just feel the sunlight on their body and just connect to nature. Sometimes it might be going and snuggling their dog or something, right? Or a loved one and just like being held. It might be going for a walk, but something gentle and something like, I would not recommend vigorous activity or, going for a free dive, right after this. And, just give yourself an opportunity to let this just integrate in a slow and gentle way. And warmth, usually, like kind of keep your body warm and let yourself just feel what's emerging, what's coming into your awareness, what's coming into your kind of memory might be activated. So sometimes journaling and writing things that come up or things that you want to explore, things about. So I've had people where we do a session like this and they were adopted and they just had a memory of something, or they had an idea that they wanted to follow some thread and they wanted to like reach out to someone, or they just wanted to learn about something that suddenly popped into their mind, etc. So sometimes there will be dreams or information will come up and you'll just want to explore it. and then we'll check in. And like after a session like this, I would check in with her. I'll check in with you in the coming days, maybe 24 hours or so, and just check in how you're doing. What are you noticing? And sometimes people will have, there'll be a long tail oftentimes with this where, it's like it will be an experience here, but then over days or sometimes weeks, and I've even had people tell me like weeks and weeks or months even later, like, oh my gosh, like I didn't know really what you did, but down the road, all these things happen. So I had a woman that left here. I did a session with her a few days ago, and she reached out and she's just said, oh my gosh, like I'm really feeling the effects of what you did. It took like a couple days, and then I realized while I was in these conversations with people that I had totally shifted. I didn't notice it right away, but my whole consciousness had shifted, and I just wasn't completely aware until I started interacting with people in my life. And that's where you can start to see where the integration is or isn't happening. You might be like, I feel like, it feels different. Like then when I did a breathwork session, it feels like it was more free, less effort. It wasn't generating it. But I feel a lot of the same feelings and similar. And then you might go home and then you're talking to, a family member or someone you care about in your life. And they're like, what'd you do? Like, you seem so different. And you're like, yeah, I actually do feel that. You might recognize things as you interface with the people that, because things are changing at this very foundational level. But really good job. And
thank you.
And yeah, thank you
Thanks
for
so much for doing that.
Absolutely.